Yes, we are live. Okay, good day everyone. This is Dr. Nina Khan. I'm a clinical psychologist, psychotherapist, and speech therapist. And I'm working with children and adults. And today we have another esteemed guest. I'm not pronouncing it wrong. And her name is Catherine Solvin. And today we are going to talk about parenting and attachment basically. So I'm sure those who are therapists and working with children, they already know why attachment is very important and how attachment is going to determine the relationship of the person throughout the life. So we will talk about these aspects as well today. So thank you so much. I would like to my guest to introduce herself by her introduce. I would like you to introduce yourself so that our people know that how you're working and from how long you're working. So once I would like to thank you for coming to our live stream.
You're you're welcome. It's great to be here. My name's Catherine Sullivan, and I'm a registered social worker. I am physically located in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. But because I practice virtually, I can serve anyone in the province of Ontario. I have been practicing social work for about 15 years. I've done a lot of work with children and youth and families. Um, but now my practice is one of the big parts of it is focusing on parenting and supporting parents who are struggling, with their youth who have mental health and behavioral challenges. And I find that a lot of those things come down to difficulties with attachment, and so those things need to be addressed in order to for parents to be successful. So that's what I do.
Okay, and I think that's very important. When you're working and you have 15 years of experience, then there's a time can then you adopt something or you select something which is very close to your heart. So I think
Mhm.
that attachment thing might be very close to your heart. And I think it's very important as well because a lot of people don't understand the importance of attachment. And I
Mhm.
think you might agree to the aspect that it's not just about attachment to the parents; it's also attachment to the caregiver as well. Because
Yeah.
what I believe is the attachment style and the it also determines your relationship with the external environment and your relationship with the your peer group and with your colleagues and even in later on your spouse as well. So I think it's very important and if there's some kind of trouble with this attachment, so I'm sure and you will agree to that aspect as well, that those people have trouble in their life as well because they cannot make friendship. And we will discuss these things in our discussion when we we will take our discussion further. So
Mhm.
okay, what are important you could say important key point of attachment in early life, or you could say why it's very important in early stages of life attachment.
Yeah, so attachment is kind of the bond that's formed between a child and caregivers. And those don't have to be necessarily biological parents, right? They could be grandparents or aunts and uncles or, whoever is involved in caring for the child. But the importance of that in early life is that relationship helps the child figure out sort of, you know, how do they relate to the environment, and is the environment safe, and can I go explore it? And if I do go explore it, can I trust that when I come back, there's going to be, if I get hurt or something happens, is there going to be somebody there to comfort me? So, it's a really important thing in early life to kind of develop that relationship. And depending on what's going on with your parents and what's going on in your environment, that relationship doesn't isn't always the healthiest, right? So there's different types of attachment. I don't know if you want me to kind of go into that, or so depending
I
on
think
how you relate. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
if we're talking about parenting, I think we should also explain the attachment style as well because people don't understand. People, even for them, attachment is nothing. I think people think that if you are feeding a child, that is enough. Like you are
Yeah.
just feeding a child, you're just giving the child milk, or maybe you're giving that is enough. And I think it's not enough. People should know why it's important, what kind of style they have. So if you
Yeah.
have, if you know, it would be, you would kind of, if you tell us the attachment style, so that we understand that what kind of style a parent have, and how we can
Mhm.
improve this style.
Right. So yeah, I mean, obviously, basic needs is sort of, there's kind of there's kind of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Basic needs are kind of on the bottom, right? So yeah, you need those. You need to be fed. You need to have a roof over your head and all that kind of stuff. But if you're a secure attachment is one where the child feels like they can go out into the environment, they're safe, and when they come back from exploring, and exploring could be, they walk to the other end of the room, right? If they trip on something or something happens, they're going to come back and they're going to get comfort from that parent, and that's always going to be the case. They know that that's no matter what's going on, they're going to get that. So they develop a secure attachment. If there's two different types, there's of anxious attachment. So there's anxious ambivalent attachment. So that happens when caregivers sometimes respond to kids' needs and sometimes they don't. So maybe, sometimes when the kid goes out to explore, they come back and their parent is there. And sometimes when they go out and explore or do something, their parent isn't there. So they don't really know if there's that security or not. So they tend to develop like this kind of anxiety about, is there going to be somebody there? Is there not? I'm not sure. And then anxious avoidant attachment. What happens is, instead of comfort when the child goes back, to the parent, the parent sort of minimizes everything or rejects them. So says, like, I'm too busy right now for you. I'm on my phone, or, this, like, why are you crying? This isn't that big of a deal. Or the child might sort of be expected to kind of take care of the parent, right? They might be comforting the parent. So that creates, again, an attachment style where they're not really getting that need met, and they have this anxiety again about, because the caregiver tends to avoid them when they come back. And the last style is disorganized. So that usually happens when like the parent has behaviors that are frightening to the child, or they're really the child just doesn't understand. Maybe the caregiver's yelling at them, or maybe they're yelling at each other, or maybe they're hitting the child, or doing something else. And so again, the child, when they approach the parent, they're scared, but they still approach them. But then they tend to develop behaviors that are either very avoidant, like they don't want to have anything to do with their parent, or they can become quite aggressive because they don't know what to do with those feelings, right? The person that's supposed to be protecting them is hurting them or scaring them, and they're young, right? So they don't know really how to interpret that.
Okay, so I think you explain all the attachment style in very, in very simple words, so that those who will watch these understand attachment style. Because what I always feel is that those children who have attachment anxiety, you know, those children, whenever they go to, maybe there are few children who are just so well in the school, and there are few children
Mm-hmm.
who would cry for 3 to 4 months. So do you think crying while going to school for 3 to 4 months is a normal thing?
Are you talking about the child, like when they
I'm
leave to
talking
go
about
to
the child.
school?
Because,
Yeah,
if the child is going to school, then the child is
yeah,
facing separation anxiety. That's why when I was
yeah.
talking in the start, I told that these, these attachment style determine our dealing to the environment, and these
Yes.
attachment style also determine our relationship with other people as well. And you might agree to
Mm-hmm.
that point as well. So suppose if a
Mm-hmm.
child is a little bit grown up and a child has to go to school, because I have seen a lot of mothers who are always scared that their child is always crying whenever they're going to school, because it's a kind of separation anxiety they have, and I think
Yeah.
it might, root in the form of attachment they have with their parents. So
Yeah.
I my question, I have seen children who are crying for maybe 4 to 5 months while going to school.
Right.
Maybe, do you think it's a normal thing, or there's something wrong with the child, or if it is, how a mother can deal with such children, or teacher can deal such child?
Yeah. Um, I don't like the label of there's something wrong with the child or that we need to fix. I find that that's very problematic, because I think, again, a lot of, I don't know about, in Pakistan, but a lot of the focus, at least in North America, tends to be on, you know, well, we're only looking at the child's behavior, right? So we're going to look at, if the child's crying when they go to school, how can we deal with that behavior in isolation, as opposed to looking at what else is going on in that child's environment, right? So yeah, I think that if they're crying all the time when they have to leave their parent to go to school, that's definitely a sign that there could be something going on in that attachment relationship, right? Because that, to them, is, if they have this kind of anxious attachment, well, if I leave and go to school, is my parent going to be there when I come back? And they don't know, right? So they get very upset when they have to be separated from that parent, because they don't know, based on what's happened in their early life, they don't know if that person's going to be there or not for them when they are finished school. So that can be definitely a symptom of problems with the attachment relationship. All right, Dr. Khan said if there was a problem, I should keep talking. So I guess I'm going to keep talking. Um, yeah, I think the piece that she talked about, where she was mentioning that, is there something wrong with the child? I really, my philosophy definitely, and is to look at the child's behavior in the context of their environment, right? I don't think that you can kind of separate out different pieces. So if a child is struggling, crying when they're going to school, or they're acting out, um, you kind of need to look at the whole context of the situation to understand that behavior. And I think that includes their parents and their relationship with their parents. So that's why I tend to focus on that, because I do believe that parents can do a lot to change that dynamic and work on it and heal it, in order to change the child's behavior. Um, and I think that focusing on the child's behavior, you know, exclusively, tends to lead to things that create more problems with attachment, because then the child feels like somehow there's something wrong with them because they've been singled out for this behavior. Um, and that, again, leads to back into what's going on with the attachment, right? It leads back to, well, what's the kind of root cause of that, right? And I think that as parents, when I'm a parent as well, it's easier sometimes to look at the child's behavior and not have to look at maybe something, and it's not necessarily that it's not that you're a bad parent or that you've done something wrong. It's just that something has happened and we need to work on healing that relationship and changing the dynamic, right? And I think that that can sometimes be harder for parents to accept and to to look at themselves as opposed to just focusing on their child, right? And schools, I think, play a role in that as well. They tend to, you know, they say to the parents, we need to do something about this because it's not okay that Johnny is crying every day when he's coming to school and we're having a hard time settling him down and he's upset most of the day, and we need to fix this, right? Because it becomes problematic for the school as well to have to manage that child's behavior all day. So there's really a focus on what's going on with this child and how do we fix it, which again, it just leads back into that problematic dynamic of we need to fix the child, which is really we need to heal the attachment.
Thank you so much for continuing the
while
I was not.
You're back. I was like, well, she told me to keep talking, so
whenever I start this discussion, I always request my guest, if you see that I'm not present, you should start talking, because one of us is present, and the people will not feel bad, or you could say it's not in the what the bad, but they will at least somebody to listen to them. Okay, so before I was talking, I was just saying that by saying that the problem behavior or bad, I didn't mean that it is something bad, but in our what is the age in your area, because we have read a lot of different studies that when a child go to school nowadays, people are taking 2-year child in preps class. So I think 2 years is very young age to induct a child in a school. So if a child is going to school from 2 years old, it's a very small age.
Yes, so that is.
What do we expect from these children to healthy relationship with the parents and with the environment? You would see, because what I feel that there are certain things which we don't like. I would like to share these things. For example, there should be some boundaries. Like you should not hold a child and the child should not sit in your lap, because there should be some boundaries between between you and the child, so that the child should understand that what is good touch, what is bad touch, and before giving them education is the education of giving this thing. So if a child is crying, you just need you're just holding child all the time in your lap, and you're just holding him, and you're just patting him in the back and stuff like that. I think it's not just about the child. Other children are also taking bad message from that thing, because they would also want to do, and they will also want to get that kind of comfort from the environment. So don't you think it's a kind of the unhealthy thing? What is your opinion about that?
Well, okay, the first thing you said was that you've got kids starting to do kind of school, I don't know, some kind of preparatory school at 2 years old. I think that's way too young. Here school starts
that is called prep.
Yeah. Here, like in Canada, school starts at about 4. But for the first 2 years, it's very kind of play-based learning. Like it's not, we have to sit at a desk and, that kind of stuff. But yeah, 2 years old, I think, is way too young to expect. I don't know what the expectations are, but first of all, it's young, I shouldn't say it's young to be separated from parents, because lots of kids go to daycare, but it's young to have that expectation of learning, unless it's play-based learning. I don't know. The piece about parents who are constantly comforting their kids and holding them, and I think so. I think it really depends on the kid. If the comforting is happening because they've gone out to explore and they've come back and something's happened and they need that comfort, then that's okay. If it's sort of a constant thing, like if you're actually literally always holding on to your child, then you're not giving them the opportunity to go out and explore, right? So then really what you're saying to them is either I don't know that, I don't think the environment is safe, so I don't want to let you go, or you're telling them that you're not sure that you can keep them safe when they come back. Like it could be either or, right? So I think that can create, it can lead to some aspects of that anxious attachment, right? If you're not letting them go out, or if you're always sort of feeling that you need to comfort them, then they kind of get this message that, maybe things aren't safe, and I can't trust, I can't trust my
And
surroundings.
why I mentioned this thing, because if we talk about a class, because if you're in school, definitely there are teacher in the classroom. Even if a child is 3 years old, I think the child is too young. Okay, so there are maybe 12, 13 or 14 children in the class, and you're just holding one child in your lap, and you're just comforting him, and the child is crying, or every day the child is doing that practice. So other children are getting, maybe maybe that kind of jealousy factor, or because
Yeah.
children are a little bit concerned with the they have attachment with the teacher as well, and every child
Yes.
have an equal right to get rewarded for the good behavior they are doing. you know
Right.
so the good behavior they are doing, the activity they are doing, and they will be one who's maybe I have seen they have the bottle, the feeder with themselves as well, and sometimes they're holding something of their mother as well. So there's a lot of things that I was working in some place, and there was this daycare. So that was a practice. Children used to come in the morning, maybe 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Then they come to the school time, and then they go back to the daycare as well. So maybe there are
Okay.
few children who might go to home 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock. So maybe they're both parents who are working, but that is a separate thing. That is a different thing. That
Right.
everybody have their own choices. But when we see these things as a professor, there are some, because I have seen uh, because there's other children as well who went to the same process as well, and they have a lot of issues that include disabilities as well. That include that
Right.
children don't know how to read properly, and they don't even know how to write properly. So that
Right.
level, and it's not emotionally mature, not
Hmm.
emotionally mature. And,
Yeah.
there are other aspects as well. So that's why I think that if they were taking their child in the school and stuff like that, so I think what they could do is give them because sometimes this is, don't let a child cry. I think crying is a normal thing, but what I would say, I mean, maybe you agree with that point as well, that crying is you are letting out things out. What are
Yeah.
you feeling? Because the natural reaction to but over there will be, you should not cry. The child should not cry. If the child will cry, then the other children will start crying as well. So it's the problem is circling around everything. So you need to check everything, but in that thing maybe you're not looking at the aspect that it is problematic for every child in that environment. It is problematic for 15 children who are in the classroom as well. So I don't know, you could not you could not fight a lot of things. Maybe you see a lot of things professionally which is wrong, but maybe it's a part of modern day as well, that your child should know, your child should go to school very early, and they should know everything. And sometimes a lot of people are teaching those concepts which are not age appropriate, in the sense that
Hmm.
there is a certain age for everything. There's a certain age to learn everything. There's a certain age to get and grab some concept. But if
Right.
you give the concept before age, so you are missing the that natural process of learning. It
Yeah.
could be missed some. So that's why that's why maybe what I mentioned, I have seen learning disabilities in these children. So maybe
Hmm.
that was the cause of this thing, and there was other problem as well. So they were taking some professional help. Few of them were taking professional help as well. And there was a girl, and she was quite sharp actually. But she don't want to make any effort actually. She don't want to read anything. She said, I don't know anything. It's very difficult. I don't want to read it. So, that thing was actually damaging their personality. So that's why, as a therapist, you would see these things, and you would see there's a lot of wrong with this system, and you want to fight for them as well. If you have, some
Yeah.
kind of, social work inside you, and human rights
Yeah.
inside, right defender inside you, like your social worker yourself. So, when there's something wrong.
Hmm.
So that's why I said
Yeah.
I have created my own platform and talk about these problems. So maybe if somebody is listening to us and they understand why, from where we are coming, because whenever you talk to parents, for them you're wrong. Why you're saying this? Like how a child could be difficult. I remember there was a girl I was working with, and she was the only child of the parents, and the mother father both was working, and the and she was a pretty girl actually, but she want to get attention all the time. So she would do some act like that in the classroom. Sometimes she would lie, and she would say that that girl take my stuff, or that caretaker hit me. So that thing was going around all the time, and she was just taking attention because she was not getting enough attention
Yeah.
from the home.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of problem getting around everywhere. So
Yeah.
I think I should give you the forum now because I talk a lot.
That's okay.
Now it's your turn. I should ask questions from you, because that's why I told you that the forum would be more like a discussion, because you're
Yeah.
from different area, I'm from different area, so global
Yeah.
things are different. But the thing is that if it's a 4 years old, I think it's a very good age to start the schooling, because
Yeah.
people ask that question from me, that what is a good age to take a
Yeah.
child to school. I think 4 is
Yeah.
a good age, because till 4 a lot of child
Yeah.
children have acquired language as well. They're
Yes.
physically developed as well. I
Yeah.
think a lot of
Yeah.
things could be easy for the children, instead of giving them confused concept and giving them difficult things to do, or putting different difficult situation as well. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
come back to our discussion as well. So we were talking about parenting and attachment. So if a child has a secure attachment, okay, now a child is grown up. So do you think we make amendment to these things, we can change the attachment style, or we can change the anxious side of a child by giving them different kind of environment? Can we change these things now if a child is grown up?
Uh, yeah, I think you can change them at, at various points, right? I think that um, the best time to intervene is when they're still, when they're still kids, right? If we can, you know, and while you were gone, I was sort of talking about the whole concept of, intervening in terms of working with the parents on changing their parenting style and their way of interacting with the kid, as opposed to focusing on, like you said, the girl in the classroom who's doing those negative behaviors, is lying and is hitting people. I can't remember, asking what's behind that, and trying to really look at, you know, as opposed to just focusing on the behavior. Um, so that would be the best time to intervene, is either in childhood or in adolescence. Um, but once a person is older, for sure, I think that people who have secure attachment, for the most part, tend to tend to stay that way. Like, they tend to keep that style, right? Because they feel that the environment is safe, and it, yeah, there might be bumps along the road, but they can manage them and they can deal with them, right? And they tend to bring that style into relationships, whether they be romantic or with coworkers or whatever that might be. Whereas people with other attachment styles tend to struggle more, right? Because again, they don't trust the environment, or they're not sure, or the disorganized kind of attachment style can lead to a lot of either being traumatized or causing trauma to other people, right? But I think if people recognize those patterns, and they go either to talk to a therapist, or something, that they can work to change them, right? I think that is possible, but I think it requires some self-reflection, and it requires some awareness of how your behavior is affecting those situations, right? And again, because of how they learned how to interact, often they often put the, well, it's not my fault, it's so and so's fault, because in that interaction, like, it was my partner's fault, or it was my boss's fault, or it was there's often a hard time recognizing their own accountability in those situations, right? So that's why it can make it harder, right, to change those patterns. But it is possible to change them, I do think. But you have to recognize that's what's happening, and then you have
That,
to.
yes, you're right. From that I was saying, because uh, I am a therapist and you are a therapist, we will look into things from therapeutic perspective, because a lot of time people don't recognize these patrons. They don't
No.
recognize what is wrong with. Even they don't recognize, they're hurting their own self as well. So that is
Mhm.
the point. They're hurting themselves, and they don't understand that why we are doing it, how we are doing this. So I think that's why therapy is important, that's why reflection is important, and that's why taking help from a person who, like, for example, if somebody come to you and you might be in a good position to solve these problems, instead of they're going to somebody, they're going to some friends. And sometimes whenever you go to some friend, I have listened to a lot of people, they said, people would say it's a common thing, we face these things all the time, so it's nothing to be worried about. So the person who are in trouble, who know that there's everything at cost, relationships are at cost, family, relationship with parents is at
Mhm.
cost, or maybe you have the problem to continue your job as well. So when things
Yep.
come to these things, when things come to damaging your first financial thing and damaging your personal well-being, then that is alarming state, and you definitely should go to the therapist. But okay, what about parents? How could they change? If you just mentioned about the person, but how about the parents and caregiver? What could a role they could play to ensure some kind of secure attachment with the person, despite of having their own traumas and having their
Yep.
own troubles, having their own anxieties?
Um, yeah, so I think that parents again, need to, like, if parents are coming to me, for example, right, looking for support in terms of the struggles that their youth is dealing with. Um, One of the first things I do with them, or I'll tell them, is that, again, right, we're not just going to be talking about your relationship with your child, right? We're going to look back at what happened in your own childhood, because there's something that's happened there that we probably need to at least be aware of, right? And and reflect on, to understand how has that played a role in where you're at now as parents, right? Because we learn, I mean, we learn how to parent from how we were parented, right? So if that was, if you didn't have a secure attachment with your own parents, you're not, again, it's not 100% like, but that could potentially lead to struggles in attachment with your own child, right? So we need to kind of look at those pieces, and then we talk about sort of what's happened in your relationship with your child, and what is going on. And um, there's a therapy model called, it's called DDP, so it's called Didactic Developmental Psychotherapy. Anyways, I didn't name it. It's Dr. Dan Hughes is the pioneer of this technique, and it's an attachment-based therapy technique that initially was developed for use with kids who are adopted or fostered, who often tend to have struggles with attachment, right? Because they're not in their they're not with their parents for whatever reason. So again, that approach really goes into, what effect is the attachment relationship having, and how can we work to heal that and change that? Which really means that parents have to do a lot of reflecting themselves and be prepared to make those changes, right? It's not just about how do I fix my kid's behavior, because again, that looks at the behavior without looking at the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so I think you're very much right over here, that because what we will say, the trauma runs in the family, the vicious cycle of abuse, it runs in the family. Same way the dealing of the children, it runs in the family as well. So if a freezer mother, the mother there's a lot of things which will be you could say common for them people, maybe letting your child do a lot of things by themselves, eating by themselves. If the child is not taking the child, not patting the child on the back, maybe these things we could be common as well. So I would like to ask you one question, because I have seen this thing as well, that sometimes people start doing overcompensation. From overcompensation, I mean that if you, like you said, that uh, we have to look into parenting style as parents as well. What was their own, their own upbringing as well. So if a child, or if a person, a man or woman, who don't have, that secure kind of relationship, who did not get that kind of love, so then they sometimes they start overcompensating these things for their old children. So maybe they would
Oh, okay.
start giving them extra love,
Yeah.
extra care, and a lot of action. And sometimes they're draining themselves as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they did not deal with their own traumas, and they're giving something. So there's constant battle going inside their self, and they
Yeah.
don't even know how to seek help for that thing. So what do you say about these parents? What do you say, what do you suggest to these people, or these parents who are going under these kind of things?
You're talking about people who are kind of overcompensating, right? Like they're sort of like so they're sort of looking at, what happened in their own childhood, and they're like, I'm going to be the complete opposite kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, the best,
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Again, I think that it's a question of, taking a step back and looking at, why is it that I'm doing this, right? And why am I engaging in this behavior, right? And is it helpful? Because if you're starting to notice that your child is having struggles, right? I think and I'm not saying this in the sense of, because I think a lot of parents take that the wrong way, and they're like, well, you're blaming us, and I'm not. That's not
No,
the
you're
that's
not blaming anyone. No, if somebody
no,
is
no.
blaming it,
It's about
it's not.
it's about it's about looking at those dynamics and how can we heal those kind of relationships, right? And repair them, because I think that if you're overcompensating, well, why is that? Like, what happened? Like, what, again, it's going back to what is the root of that behavior, right? Why? And do you even realize it, right? Because I think, again, a lot of people don't realize that they're doing that, and maybe their partner does, or maybe their child does later on in life. Yeah, I think a lot of things do tend to kind of, go back to what happened. What's the attachment style, and what's the attachment relationship, and how can we work at healing that, right? And I have seen people using this attachment-based kind of parenting style, and it does work, but it takes time. Like, it takes time and effort to do it, right? It's not something that you're just going to do it once and all of a sudden you're going to see,
And the second thing is, it
you
needs
know.
professional help as well. If somebody want to do that, then they should seek some professional help there, because
Mhm.
you cannot do these things in your own capacity, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of trauma based experiences that
Yeah.
you went through. And why I ask you this question, because I have seen those parents are on the edge, and
Hmm.
they are doing extra, and then they are
Yeah.
getting exhausted in it. And that they are just you could say they're just losing hope. Maybe
Yeah, they're getting
the
burnt
child is
out.
but they're losing the hope for their own self
Yeah.
as well. So even
Hmm.
they're so afraid of taking therapy, that somebody
Yeah.
will judge them, because their
Mm.
parents were in the therapy. So we cannot therapy, because we don't want to be like our parents. We don't want to be abusive parents. But in that process, they're denying their own self, and they're totally doing opposite of something which is not normal and not natural. And if something is not normal and natural, that there's a lot of restraint going around these things. So people don't understand until they collapse. And uh, and at the end of the day, you're very much right that attachment style matter a lot. And okay, now let's talk a little bit about parenting and parenting styles. So I would like you
Mhm.
to tell about parenting style as well. And what is parenting style prevalent in your in your country or in your area?
What is the parenting style in my country? Oh, I don't know. It's a big country, Dr. Khan. I don't.
That's a big, but society have just of society have cream of everything. there's a lot of things that for example, if we say that we have in our area, or you could say in Asia, there's a lot of authoritative kind of parenting. So you have to
Okay.
say yes to everything, and parents are taking your decisions. So it's like more like that. So you are
Okay.
you're living with your parents. It's not just like you have to leave your house when you're 18 years old. So our
Right.
even if people have getting married and they have children, so grandchildren, and they are living in the same house, they're
Okay.
single family as even then. There are a lot of places where these things are not that much prevalent. Single family unit is not that much prevalent, and those who went to single family unit, they are facing a lot of trouble as well. So that
Okay.
is a different
Interesting.
dynamic. Because the thing is that, let me give example. Then I will take your name. I was working with a child, and they came to me from the UK, and they said that when a child with some disability or some issues, for example, it is autism. So if a child is living in supportive environment, child is living in um, in with a lot of family members, then the child is able to learn a lot of things. Then he get a lot of
Mhm.
attention as well, and there's a lot of family member taking care of their child. But when the child is alone with the parents, so that the parents and they're alone, so they have a lot of issues, a lot of trouble as well. And then they say that we shouldn't have come to that place, so we should opt for a single family unit. So that was their
Yeah.
opinion. But I would like to ask about your area, about your parenting. So what kind of parenting is prevalent in your area, and how what kind of attachment style over there? Because
So
even your motherhood is also different in both countries. That is the point.
yes. So I would say again, I can't speak for every culture in every, area, but I would say that y- you know, uh, that there's less of that sort of idea of multiple generations living in the same house, I would say. Um, I think that, there tends to be, like you said, that sort of single family unit,
Yeah.
where, you've got parents and children. Um, yeah, and I think that there's pluses and minuses either way, right? I think sometimes
Yeah.
I've spoken with people who, have been living in the same house as their grandparents, and I was talking to the youth, and the youth, was wanting to come out as being, I can't remember, bisexual, or anyways, like not heterosexual, right? And didn't feel that they could do that because their grandparents would just not accept that at all. So, but then again, I think that, maybe if they'd just been living in a house with their parents, that might have been a different situation, and they wouldn't have been having that level of anxiety and all those issues with, and different types of attachments to different people, right? Their attachment to their mother was very different than their attachment to their grandmother. So I think that it really depends on the family, and it depends on what's happened, right? Like if you're living in a house with many, many generations of trauma that still haven't been healed, then that could be, right? That can be problematic. If you're living in a house with a lot of generations of people who have had secure attachment and they're all very supportive, then helpful, right? I think that's great. I just think it really depends on the family and their community too, right? Are there services available in your community? Can you access them? Are there long wait lists? Like especially if you have a child who has, like you said, who's neurodivergent, who has autism, right? Are there services and can you access them, right? Because that can often be
Let me discuss the problem. But this family could have, if they are living in the joint family system.
right,
First thing is, they cannot tell anybody that their child is having some this kind of issue, because they would
right,
say, uh, he's just a small kid. You don't need to get worried for that. Our child was, when he was 4 years, then he started talking. So just don't take therapy. You're just wasting your time. And even yesterday, day before yesterday, she was saying to me that I was just trying to, discipline my child. She was, the child did something, and my mother-in-law said that you're too hard on your child. you should not do this with your child. So that kind of dynamics is
Yeah.
as you talk about the attachment style. There was a kid coming to me, and he was, I think, 10 or 11 years old. And he's the mother came that the child don't want to study, he's not good in study, and there was a lot of trouble issues as well, a lot of things as well, because the father and mother, they both were very educated people. And the thing was that she was doing some kind of job, and father don't want to do her. Father was not aligned, and because he was saying that I'm already doing a job, she should give time to the children. And the mother was overachiever actually. Yeah, overachiever in the sense she was gold medal in something, so she wanted to pursue her career because she had taken that gold medal as well. So it means that she was passionate about work as well. So whenever she wanted to discipline her child, like for example, the child wants something, some kind of video game or stuff like that, so the mother would say that I'm not going to give you. Father was not present. The father used to come in the weekends or Saturday, Sunday. So that was mother all the time. So whenever the mother was not able to give the child something, because she was not providing something, and she said that you're not supposed to have that thing because you're a young child, or you will get that at some other time. So the child would go to his aunts and his grandmother, and they will give him that thing. So that
Mhm.
pushing pulling was all around over there. And
Yeah.
whenever I started to the child that why you're not studying, so he said that my I have a friend, and his father is not educated just like my father, and he have some kind of some kind of business. So and he's earning more than my father. So what is the use of education? Because
Right.
I have a very kind of living example in front of me. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
environment was
Mhm.
because he know that he have a place where he can go, and he can do that bargaining as well. So, these kind
Right.
of attachment thing,
Yeah.
taking advantage of these attachments. At the end of the day, the child is going to ruin himself, but nobody is there to talk to that child. And father used to say, I cannot discipline that child because I only have 1 or 2 days with that child. What would I do
Yeah.
in that scenario? So in
Okay.
that case, mother was
I
struggling actually. He was
I
having
I
high kind
I
of
di-
level.
I disagree with that, but fair enough with what the father said.
That is the point
So
actually.
so I think again, right? There was a bunch of stuff in that. So I think that one of the things I always say to parents, right, is that consistency is key, right? You have to be consistent with whatever the expectation is. So if the expectation is that, you know, after 6 o'clock, you don't get your whatever, you're not allowed to be on video games, then
Yeah.
that needs to be the expectation and it needs to be consistent. Um, Regardless of where the kid is, right? Like if there's two parents that are split up or one parent who's not there as much as the other, they have to have some kind of agreement on, these are the basic rules, right? Like the, obviously both parents are going to have different styles, right? I'm not expecting them to both be exactly the same.
Yeah,
But
true, true. That is the point.
the other piece about the aunt and the grandmother too is another thing I've run across, right? So if there are multiple adults living in the same house, there needs to be a clear boundary about who are the main caregivers of this child, right? And if it's the mother, then the aunt and the grandmother need to defer back to the mother. I can't make a decision about your video games. You need to go and talk to your mother, right? That's not a decision that I can make, right? Like there has to be clarity about, because again, kids are smart, right? And they want their video games.
That is
So
the point.
they're going to do whatever they can to get them. And if they know that if mom says no and they go ask grandma and grandma says yes, well then of course they're going to do that. Like you know? So there has to be, again, right? Consistency. And if there's more than multiple adults living in the same house, there has to be an agreement on who is the main person that, we go to mom and dad or we go to grandma or whoever it is, right? And that person is the final
And the thing is
decision
that
maker.
in this situation, it was not possible actually. That is the point. That's why I
Okay.
asked about the parenting style, because over here things are totally different.
Right.
Yeah, things are different. Now the things are changing because when it's that you could say single family unit is a different aspect, but
Hmm.
in these, because these are actually pushing pulling kind of things, because
Yes.
you are actually, whenever you talk about family therapy, so that there are groups, and they're pushing pulling about these groups. So one group
Yeah.
is pushing other group, another group is pushing other group, so there's a constant battle going on. And I don't know
Mhm.
why people want to win that battle. So what they will get at the end of the day, that they are just mentally torturing their sister-in-law, because she is more educated or she is independent, and they don't want to be her to be independent. So there are a lot of dynamics involved. And I
Yes.
think, whenever I talk to some therapist over this, they always say that there's you need a village to raise a child. So it's more like, there are a lot of battles around child, and the child have to somehow get out of these things. How he I don't know how he's going to, because at the end of the day the child is suffering. That is what
Yes.
concern me. That is the
And
point.
that and that, and
Because
that
the adults live their
yeah.
own life according to their own
Yes.
expectation, according to their opinion. But about the child,
Mhm.
because the child was so relevant on that point, why I should study?
Yes. And that's
He
the
was not studying
discussion.
at all.
Yeah.
He was
That's
7 to
the
8 years
dis
and he was not studying at all.
yeah. And that's the discussion that I would have with those parents or whoever's involved with that child, right? Is, you know, you're the adults and you need to, and I know it's not simple, but you need to kind of put your differences aside or whatever it is, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to like what are this child's needs and how is all of this impacting him, right? I don't care that you don't like your sister-in-law because she's more educated than you or whatever the issue is, right? Like you really need to have I think you really need to have those hard discussions with the adults. They might not like that,
Yeah,
but
true.
and say to
People
them,
don't want to go for therapy because they think just deal the child. It is their problem. Parents don't come to
exactly.
you whenever you ask them
Yeah.
to come. They don't want to come. They just said that it's between you and the child. And most of the time, mother is present in the therapy and father don't show up. He would say that
So
I don't have time.
yeah,
I don't have time.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is
and
the very
I've had that too. So again, I set a clear boundary and I say, there's only so much I'm going to be able to accomplish when I don't have that person's buy-in, right? Like you really like if there's two parents involved, you really need both of them. If the mother is the primary caregiver and that kind of stuff, yes, you can do work. Like you can get a lot of stuff done, you can see a lot of changes happen. Um Again, right? I think that if they're just sending the child and yeah, you can work with that child and you can do a lot of great things. Fair, you know. But again, I would say to parents, like if parents are coming back and saying, or they're saying why aren't things getting better when it's been X amount of time, I would say, well, I really think we need to look at other aspects of this child's environment,
because
right?
sometimes
Why is it?
true.
You know?
I work with a child, and you start trying to discipline the child, and he's watching his father doing the same thing, because no matter what kind of father is, what kind of parenting style a father has, the child would copy his father, because he's the child is first, you could
Mhm.
say, the first role model. So
Yep.
I don't know why people still don't talk about Freud and the classical theory. Those theories are so relevant even till date today. These, for example, that theory is the Bowlby theory of attachment, and the insecure attachment, and
Yes.
the caregiver attachment. These are so relevant things
Yep.
nowadays. Even no matter you start studying CBT, and you start studying NLP and stuff like that. I don't know. There are a lot of things people start studying now. You cannot deny the importance of classical therapy, the importance of classical psychology, and the implementation of these things, because you know um, uh, that was Jung who used to spend the whole day with a child family. It was Jung. I don't remember the name of the person. There was some therapist who used to spend the whole day with the family. Then he used to start working with that child. I don't.
Oh, okay. I I
The
I
picture
I
is
know
coming
who
up.
you, I can't yeah. I can't remember, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he knows the importance of these things.
Yes.
Whenever you have
Yeah.
to work with a child, so you have to work with the family
Mhm.
actually. So
Yeah.
sometimes you are doing a lot of efforts, and whenever the child go to, for example, now I'm working with a child, I'm teaching that child how to write. And whenever I give that child homework, the mother is doing the child homework because she don't want to sit with the child. And I said, please don't do his homework. I will make him do his homework at my place, but don't do his homework. Please, the child is, the child is actually, the child is CP child, and I want that child to learn something at least. So that, write something basic thing, and he knows some basic thing. So you don't need to, just, don't take guilt and blame of finding. It's okay if the child is not, I will make him do that thing. But I am putting a lot of efforts to teach that child to learn, to motivate, to make him independent. So there's a lot of efforts going on the side of the therapist. And whenever they say whenever whenever the child is not getting input from the parents, so that they should understand that the therapy process is slow. That you need to look into that aspect as well. So I think I have that was nice talking to you. And
can I just say one more thing about what you were talking about? Just I think I think there's a lot of parents feel a lot of sort of guilt and shame if something is not like if something with their kid, like their kid isn't learning the way they should. I put should in quotation marks, right? I think that and I always say this to parents when I meet with them, right? Like, I don't have any expectations. I think society, whatever society you're in, there's a lot of expectations of how you should parent and how your kids should turn out. And right. So there's a lot of pressure, and parents feel that pressure from their friends, from schools, from everywhere. Right. And that all weighs down on them. And that feeling of shame and guilt is what can be a barrier to them asking for help, right? So I think that we need to kind of start removing some of that stuff and say, you know what, it's if something's not, if you're struggling and things aren't going well, whether it's with parenting, whether it's with your own, whatever it is, that's what therapists are here for. That's,
that is a point.
That's what we're here for.
They bring their child, and actually they want therapy. And I have seen a lot of cases, maybe you have encountered these cases as well. So they bring your child and you start thinking, what is the problem with the child? And it actually comes to that they want to take therapy themselves. So it's a good thing if they are coming that way, because somehow they are coming to you, they are reaching your, and a lot of time, if a child has some kind of problem, some kind of trouble, so they put the blame on themselves all the time. They're so guilty of that thing. Even I have seen children who have, who have special needs. So special needs is nobody's fault. If a child is, it's not the parent, the child is not able to, learn something or learn some language. So first, I, whenever I start working with them, I start working with the mother, and I take out their burden. I said that is not your fault. That the child will be the way the child is, whether you give him screen time or you did not give him screen time, whether the child was living with her grandmother and stuff like that. So it's always whenever I think whenever it's come to the child, then parents are also involved, part of that thing, and family is also part of that thing. So you cannot deal that child in isolation. You always have to work even as a therapist, you could also work like a family member, because you're an important part of that child life, and the child listen to you, the child give you value, the child is attached to you, the child share a lot of things with you, the child shares emotions with you. So it means that you're an important part of that child life as well. So I think sometimes maybe therapists need to change different things as well. So parents need to adjust different things, and at the end of the day, everybody wants the child to do better, and maybe beyond his capacity. So I think whatever parents are doing, sometimes I think that it's not their fault actually. The point is that they don't know. They've been through that thing as well.
And that's why they're coming to therapy, to explore what it is that's going on and how can we help you and how can we support you. So
that is what therapy is for. So I would say, after my, I would also like to give you the comment on closing remark as well. So if ever you think that something is happening with your child, you should take that child to the therapist, and you also need to take the guidance from the therapist as well, because whatever, no matter what, you could say, what is the gender of a therapist, or if it is your child therapist, she always have a best interest of your child, because at the end of the day, you both are working for the child.
Yeah.
Therapist, you, and even the school. So everybody want a child to have a full functioning life and healthy life as well. So don't afraid to take help from the therapist. So I would like you
Yeah.
to give the closing remarks, and thank you so much for coming, and that was
You're
lovely
welcome.
discussion. That was exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me energy to talk to
Yeah.
you.
I think in closing again, just pay attention to, pay attention to the child, what's in their best interest, and let's not look at kids' behavior in isolation. We need to look at the bigger picture and look at intervening on that level, because I think, if we just intervene on that very small piece of the child's behavior, you're not going to see as much lasting change as if you look at the parenting and the attachment and those pieces. And don't be afraid to come to therapy. Therapists are very nice. If you don't click with one therapist, then try another one.
Yeah, that is a point. That is a point. Like, you think that your child
It's
is not
okay.
compatible with
Yeah, it's okay
don't
if
think
you
your
don't
child
if you don't
just
like me. It's okay. I'll find you somebody else, or you can find somebody else that
yeah, that is
you
a
work
point.
better with. So,
Yeah, so that's the
all
point.
right,
Thank you so much for
you're
coming to.
welcome.
That was such a nice, lovely experience. You know, uh, this give when we talk to some therapists, they give you some different kind of energy. So it's
Mhm.
more like taking some kind of refresher course from someone. And I think as a therapist, we need catharsis as well.
Yes,
You
we
did
need.
exchange ideas actually. That was the
Yeah.
point, because there's a lot of things which we see seem troubles in doing therapies, and we have a lot of problems with
Mhm.
dealing different children. So I think if we do such kind of discussion, then we can exchange the ideas, and we can talk about our problem as well, that what I face problem and what you're facing problem. So that was
Yeah.
lovely discussion. And
Yes, it was great.
I would also again want you to come to us and with different topic. If you have some topic, then you're welcome always. We can have discussion on
Okay.
that. Thank you so much. That was
You're
lovely talking to you.
welcome.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Dr.
Bye bye.